Your presence makes sharing these stories worthwhile. Tell us, where are you tuning in from today? Big city? Small town? Share with us in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Family Bonds. The crash barrier hadn't been enough to save them. Drew Sullivan stood at their graves, 16 and alone, his knuckles white around the wilting flowers. The foster system waited to claim him, but for now, he had these final moments with the parents who'd shaped his world. "I'll make you proud," he whispered, placing the flowers between their headstones. "I promise." 10 years later, Drew watched fighters train in his third MMA gym, the sound of gloves hitting pads echoing through the space. He'd channeled his grief into building something meaningful, a place where others could find strength in their struggles. "Your stance is too wide," Drew called out to a young fighter. "You're leaving yourself open." He demonstrated the correct position, muscle memory from countless hours of training guiding his movements. The gym door opened, bringing with it Amy Parker, the new sports therapist he'd hired. She carried her medical bag, her auburn hair tied back practically, her presence already familiar after just 3 months. "Mr. Chin's shoulder is acting up again," she said, setting down her bag. "Mind if I take a look before his next match?" Drew nodded, watching as she approached Marcus Chun, his top fighter. Her hands moved, finding the source of tension. Marcus's relief was visible as she worked. "You're good at that," Drew said later, as Amy packed up her supplies. She smiled, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Years of practice. Though I have to say, your fighters are easier to work with than most. They actually listen to recovery advice. I'll make sure they do. No point in training if you're going to ignore your body's needs." Their conversations became a daily routine. Amy understood the physical demands of fighting in a way few outside the sport did. She spoke about injury prevention with the same passion Drew felt for teaching proper technique. "You should consider opening a clinic next to the gym," Drew suggested one evening, as they locked up. "The fighters would benefit from having you closer." Amy's eyes lit up. "I've actually been thinking about that. The space next door is available." Their professional relationship evolved into something more personal. Coffee after work became dinner dates. Discussions about fighter recovery turned into conversations about their lives, their dreams. "Tell me about them," Amy said one night over pasta, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "Your parents." Drew hesitated. He rarely spoke about them, but Amy's gentle presence made it feel safe. "Dad was a high school wrestling coach. Mom taught elementary school. They were everything to me." Amy squeezed his hand. "They'd be proud of what you've built." Their wedding was small but joyful. Rhonda, Amy's mother, helped plan everything. She was a retired nurse who'd lost her husband to cancer years earlier, and she seemed to understand Drew's loss in a way others didn't. "You're good for my daughter," Rhonda told him during the reception. "I haven't seen her this happy in years." When Jack was born, Drew discovered a new kind of love. He held his son for the first time, this tiny being who represented everything he'd thought he'd lost: family, belonging, hope. "He has your eyes," Amy said, watching them from her hospital bed. "Poor kid," Drew joked, but his voice cracked with emotion. The years passed in a blur of growth, both personal and professional. Drew's gyms thrived, Amy's clinic prospered, and Jack grew into a curious, energetic boy who loved spending time at the gym. Connor Walsh entered their lives when Jack was 14. He came highly recommended as a physical trainer specializing in sports rehabilitation. His resume was impressive, his references impeccable. "His techniques are revolutionary," Amy said, showing Drew the application. "He's worked with Olympic athletes." Drew watched Connor demonstrate his methods. The trainer moved with fluid grace, explaining complex biomechanics in simple terms. His charisma was undeniable. Fighters gravitated toward him, eager to learn. "I'm particularly interested in working with younger athletes," Connor said during his interview. "Catching bad habits early makes all the difference." Jack took to Connor immediately. The trainer had a way of making technical instructions feel like shared secrets, building confidence through careful guidance. "Connor showed me this cool new stretch today," Jack said over dinner one evening. "It's helping with my hip flexibility." Drew noticed Rhonda spending more time at the gym, supposedly to watch Jack train. She and Connor often spoke in quiet tones, their conversation stopping when Drew approached. "Just discussing Jack's progress," Rhonda would say, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. The first signs of trouble were subtle. Equipment moved from its usual places. Training schedules changed without notice. Drew's office door was unlocked one morning when he was certain he'd secured it the night before. Marcus Chun, his starfighter, brought concerns to Drew's attention. "Something's off with the new training programs," he said. "My recovery times are getting longer, not shorter." Drew reviewed the programs but found Amy's signature approving all changes. When he tried to discuss it with her, she became defensive. "Connor's methods are proven," she insisted. "You're just resistant to change." Jack's transformation was harder to ignore. The boy who once bounded into the gym now slipped in quietly, keeping to the shadows. He flinched when Drew reached to correct his form during training. "I'm fine, Dad," Jack would say, pulling away. "Connor already showed me how to do it." Drew noticed the bruises during a sparring session. They weren't the typical marks from training. These followed a pattern clustered in places that wouldn't show under a t-shirt. "It's from the new training program," Jack explained, tugging his sleeve down. "Connor says I need to condition my body to take hits." The family dinners that had once been sacred became rare. Amy worked later, citing patient needs. Jack retreated to his room, claiming homework. Drew found himself alone more often, watching his family slip away. One evening, he overheard Rhonda speaking to another gym member. "Drew's methods are outdated," she was saying. "He pushes too hard. Connor understands modern training better." The comment stung, but it was Jack's response that worried Drew most. His son had been standing nearby, shoulders hunched, eyes down, saying nothing to defend his father. The final weeks of normalcy played out like a slow-motion car crash. Drew saw the signs but couldn't prevent the impact. Amy's criticism became more public, her support for Connor more obvious. Jack's withdrawal deepened, his eyes holding secrets he seemed afraid to share. Connor's private training sessions at Rhonda's house raised red flags Drew couldn't ignore. Amy attended these sessions frequently, returning home with elaborately detailed excuses about emergency patient treatments. "Why can't they train at the gym?" Drew asked one night. "Rhonda's pool is better for rehabilitation," Amy replied, not meeting his eyes. "And it's more private." The word private echoed in Drew's mind, carrying weight he wasn't ready to acknowledge. He watched his family fracture, piece by piece, unable to stop the dissolution of everything he'd rebuilt after losing his parents. The truth waited in the shadows, patient and cruel, ready to shatter what remained of Drew Sullivan's reconstructed world. Chapter 2: Warning Signs. Marcus Chen's voice carried an edge Drew had never heard before. The fighter stood in Drew's office, his usual confidence replaced by uncertain tension. "Someone's been in the equipment room," Marcus said, shifting his weight. "The weight settings on my machines were all wrong this morning. Third time this week." Drew leaned forward in his chair. "Wrong how?" "Too heavy. Way too heavy. Could have caused serious injury if I hadn't checked first." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "And my recovery program's been altered again. The changes have your wife's signature, but what? The new routine doesn't make sense. It's like someone's trying to slow down my progress before the tournament." Drew pulled up the training logs on his computer. Marcus was right. The programs have been modified repeatedly, each change signed off by Amy, but clearly showing Connor's influence. "Has Connor approached you about private training?" Drew asked. Marcus nodded. "Keeps pushing for sessions at Ms. Rhonda's place. Says his pool therapy would fix my shoulder issues faster." He paused. "Thing is, my shoulder was fine until these new programs started." After Marcus left, Drew did a thorough check of the gym. In the back office, he found signs someone had been using his computer. The login screen showed multiple failed attempts from the previous night. Security footage revealed Connor entering the office well after closing time, using a key Drew hadn't authorized. The trainer spent nearly an hour at Drew's computer before leaving through the back door. "Care to explain this?" Drew confronted Connor the next morning, playing the footage. Connor's charm switched on like a light. "Oh, that? I was reviewing Marcus's progress reports. Amy gave me permission to access the files. Should have mentioned it earlier, my mistake. At midnight. I work better late at night. Less interruption." Connor's smile remained steady. Amy knows I often work odd hours. Feel free to verify with her. Drew did verify and hit a wall of excuses. Amy defended Connor's actions, claiming she'd authorized his access for a special rehabilitation project. "You're becoming paranoid," she said, her voice carrying an unfamiliar coldness. "Connor's trying to help our fighters. Why can't you see that?" The changes in Jack became impossible to ignore. During training sessions, Drew noticed his son maintaining unusual distance from other fighters. The boy who'd once loved demonstrating techniques now avoided physical contact whenever possible. One afternoon, Drew found Jack alone in the training room, practicing forms. His son's movements were different, harder, more aggressive, yet somehow fearful. "Your guard's dropping," Drew said, approaching slowly. "Let me show you." Jack jerked away before Drew could touch him. "I've got it," he snapped. "Connor already fixed my form. Those bruises on your arms, they're not from regular training, are they?" "I told you, it's part of Connor's conditioning program." Jack wouldn't meet his eyes. "He says I need to toughen up. Son, if something's happening." "Nothing's happening." Jack's voice cracked. "Just leave it alone, Dad. Please." Drew watched his son practically run from the training room, the boy's behavior triggering memories of his own trauma counseling after losing his parents. He recognized the signs of a teenager carrying too heavy a burden. The next day, Drew overheard Rhonda speaking to a group of parents near the reception area. Her voice carried just enough to be heard clearly. "Drew's methods are becoming dangerous," she was saying. "Connor's had to correct so many bad habits in these young fighters." Thank goodness Amy saw the problem before someone got seriously hurt. The parents listened, nodding along. Drew noticed how Rhonda's words seemed carefully chosen, planting seeds of doubt while maintaining plausible deniability. During the regional tournament preparation, Drew discovered more disturbing changes. The recovery protocols for his entire team had been systematically altered, each modification subtle enough to avoid immediate notice, but significant enough to impact performance. "These changes could destroy our fighters' careers," Drew confronted Amy in her clinic. "What were you thinking?" "I was thinking about their long-term health," Amy replied, her professional mask firmly in place. "Connor's methods are proven to reduce injury rates by extending recovery times, by pushing unnecessary treatments. You're seeing conspiracy where there's only progress." Amy turned away, arranging files on her desk. "Maybe you're just afraid of losing control." The private training sessions at Rhonda's house increased in frequency. Amy's excuses for attending grew more elaborate, each explanation wrapped in layers of medical terminology and urgent patient needs. Drew drove past Rhonda's house one evening, noting Connor's car parked behind the garage, poorly hidden by Rhonda's SUV. Through the windows, he caught glimpses of movement in the pool area. When Amy returned home hours later, her hair was damp. "Emergency hydrotherapy session," she explained, hurrying past him. "A patient's recover." "I saw Connor's car," Drew interrupted. Amy's expression flickered between surprise and something darker. "He's consulting on several cases." "It's perfectly professional. Is that why you're hiding his car behind Rhonda's?" "You're imagining things." Amy's voice turned sharp. "This paranoia isn't healthy, Drew. Maybe you should talk to someone." The final warning came from an unexpected source. One of the younger fighters, a teenager named Tommy, approached Drew after class. "Mr. Sullivan?" Tommy's voice was barely above a whisper. "About those private sessions at Ms. Rhonda's. What about them?" Tommy glanced around nervously. "Connor keeps pushing me to join. Says I need special training. But Jack, he told me to stay away. He said..." The boy swallowed hard. "He said not to trust them. Any of them." Drew's mind raced back through months of subtle changes, of growing distance and unexplained injuries. He thought of Jack's withdrawal, of Amy's late nights, of Rhonda's careful campaign of undermining. The pieces were there, forming a picture he'd been afraid to see. His family wasn't just changing, it was being systematically dismantled by people he'd trusted to help build it. The warning signs had been flashing red for months. Now, as Drew Sullivan stood in his empty office reviewing security footage of Connor's late-night activities, he realized he'd been watching his world crumble in slow motion. The truth waited just around the corner, ready to destroy what remained of his rebuilt life. But this time, Drew Sullivan wouldn't be the helpless 16-year-old watching his world collapse. This time, he'd fight back. Chapter 3: Breaking Point. Victory should have tasted sweeter. Drew's team had dominated the championship, their performance a testament to years of dedicated training. Instead of celebrating with the others, he found himself driving home early from the week-long training camp, Jack silent beside him in the passenger seat. "You fought well today," Drew said, trying to bridge the growing gap between them. Jack stared out the window, his reflection showing dark circles under his eyes. "Can we just go home? I'm tired." The house appeared normal as they pulled into the driveway, but something felt off. Drew noticed fresh tire marks in the gravel, marks that shouldn't have been there if Amy was at the medical conference she'd mentioned. "I'm going to check my training room," Jack said, heading for the stairs as soon as they entered. Drew followed, a step behind, when Jack's sharp intake of breath stopped him. The training room, Jack's sanctuary since childhood, was empty. The equipment, the mats, the training dummies all gone. "Mom said she was going to redesign it," Jack's voice shook. "But I didn't think—" Heavy footsteps on the stairs announced Rhonda's arrival. She stood in the doorway, a smile playing at her lips that made Drew's skin crawl. "Oh, you're home early," she said, her tone carrying false surprise. "Amy's just finishing up some arrangements." "Arrangements?" Drew turned slowly. "For what?" "The equipment sale, of course." Amy appeared behind her mother, Connor half hidden in her shadow. "We discussed this. The room needs updating." "No, we didn't discuss this." Drew stepped forward, positioning himself between Jack and the others. "We never discussed selling my son's equipment." Connor cleared his throat. "Amy mentioned Jack's been focusing more on therapeutic training lately. The old equipment wasn't really suitable." "Shut up." Drew's voice cut through the room. "Jack, go to your room." "But Dad." "Now, son. Please." Jack hesitated, then slipped past the adults, his shoulders hunched. Drew noticed how he curved away from Connor, maintaining maximum distance. "You're frightening the boy," Rhonda said, her concerned grandmother act wearing thin. "This aggressive behavior." "Stop." Drew held up a hand. "Just stop. The act isn't working anymore." Amy stepped forward, her professional mask firmly in place. "Drew, you're obviously stressed. Connor and I have been talking, and we think—" "I bet you have been talking." Drew's laugh held no humor. "Like all those emergency patient consultations at your mother's house?" Color drained from Amy's face. Connor moved slightly, positioning himself between them. The trainer's usual charm had vanished, replaced by something colder. "You should listen to your wife," Connor said softly. "These outbursts aren't healthy. Neither is abusing my son." The words hung in the air like smoke. Rhonda recovered first, her gasp theatrical. "How dare you?" Rhonda's voice rose sharply. "After everything we've done for this family." "Everything you've done?" Drew's control slipped. "Like helping Connor access my son? Like covering up what's been happening in your house?" Amy stepped between them. "You're not thinking clearly. Connor's been helping Jack improve." "Improve?" Drew pulled out his phone, bringing up photos he'd secretly taken during training. "These bruises are improvement? The flinching? The fear?" Connor's composure cracked slightly. "Training injuries happen. You know that better than anyone, Drew." "Not like this." Drew advanced on Connor. "Not in patterns. Not hidden under clothes." Jack's footsteps on the stairs interrupted the confrontation. He stood halfway down, gripping the railing, his face pale. "Tell them, Jack," Rhonda commanded. "Tell your father about your training progress." Jack's eyes met Drew's, and something broke. "I can't," he whispered. "I can't lie anymore." The room froze. Amy turned to her son, her expression shifting between confusion and fear. "Jack, honey, what are you talking about?" "Show them," Drew said gently. "Show them what Connor's training really looks like." Jack's hands shook as he pulled up his sleeve. The bruises there weren't random training marks. They formed distinct patterns, finger-shaped marks that no legitimate training would cause. "Those are—" Amy's voice faltered. "From when I didn't follow instructions," Jack said, his voice growing stronger. "When I threatened to tell Dad what was happening during private sessions." Rhonda moved toward Jack, her hand outstretched. "Sweetheart, You're confused. Connor would never. Don't touch him. Drew's voice could have cut steel. Don't you dare touch my son. Connor's charm vanished entirely, replaced by something cold and calculating. Interesting story, Jack. But who do you think they'll believe? A troubled teenager or a respected trainer? They'll believe the videos, Jack replied, pulling out his phone. The ones I've been recording. Every session, threat. Time you made me keep quiet. The color drained from Connor's face. Rhonda grabbed the stair railing for support. Amy stood frozen, looking between her son and her lover. You said, she turned to Connor. You told me the private sessions were about specialized training. They were, Connor sneered, training him to keep his mouth shut. Drew moved faster than anyone expected, but Jack's voice stopped him before he reached Connor. Dad, wait. There's more. Jack descended the stairs fully. Show them the text, Dad. Show them what Grandma Rhonda said she'd do if I told. Drew pulled up the message thread Jack had forwarded him. Rhonda's threats were explicit. She would claim Drew was the abuser if Jack spoke up, using her position as a concerned grandmother to destroy his father's reputation. You threaten my son? Drew's voice was deadly quiet. Your own grandson? I was protecting him. Rhonda snapped. Connor's methods may be strict, but they're necessary. Drew's training would have ruined him. Like you ruined those other kids? Jack asked. The ones from Connor's old gyms? Connor moved suddenly, heading for the door, but Drew was faster. He blocked the exit, his fighter's stance automatic. The police are already on their way, Drew said calmly. Anonymous tip about suspected abuse at a local gym. They're very interested in Connor's employment history. Amy sank onto the stairs, her professional facade crumbling. The recovery programs, she whispered. The delayed healing times? I thought. You thought what? Drew's attention snapped to his wife. That sabotaging fighters' recoveries was justified? That pushing them toward Connor's special training was helping? I didn't know, Amy protested weakly. I didn't understand. Yes, you did. Jack's voice was firm. You saw the bruises. You heard the excuses. You chose not to understand. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Connor's composure shattered completely. This is your fault, he snarled at Jack. I should have shut you up permanently when I had the chance. The confession hung in the air as police cars pulled into the driveway. Drew kept his position blocking the door, watching his son stand straighter, stronger, finally free of the secrets he'd been forced to carry. The truth had broken them, but as Drew watched the police lead Connor away, he realized it had also set them free. His family lay in ruins around him, trust shattered like glass, but his son was safe. The rest could wait. The first act of their story ended there, in a house empty of everything but truth, with a father and son standing together against those who'd tried to tear them apart. The deception was over, but its echoes would ripple through their lives forever. Chapter 4, First Blood. Tony Martinez's guest house offered Jack something he hadn't felt in months: safety. The former Special Forces medic watched from his kitchen window as Drew helped his son unpack, noting the careful way the boy moved, cataloging signs of abuse with practiced eyes. Let me take a look at those injuries, Tony said when Drew brought Jack inside. I've got experience documenting this kind of thing. Jack hesitated, glancing at his father. Drew nodded encouragingly. Tony served as a combat medic. He knows what he's doing. The examination was, Tony's hands gentle as he photographed each bruise, each mark. These aren't training injuries, he muttered, focusing his camera on distinct finger-shaped marks. And they're at different stages of healing. Connor said it was part of conditioning. Jack's voice was barely audible. He said all serious fighters went through it. Tony's jaw tightened. I've treated fighters for 20 years. This isn't training, it's abuse. Drew paced the small living room, his phone buzzing constantly with messages from Amy and Rhonda. We need to find out if there were others, he said. Connor's worked at other gyms. I can help with that. Tony put down his camera. Still have contacts in security. Give me a few days to make calls. The investigation revealed a pattern that made Drew's stomach turn. Connor Walsh, or variations of that name, appeared at successful gyms across 3 states. The method was always the same. Charm his way into a position, identify vulnerable athletes, and uses authority to abuse them. He targeted single mothers, Tony reported, spreading documents across his dining table, or families going through difficulties. Used his position to get close to the kids, then pursued relationships with the mothers. Drew studied the papers, recognizing the tactics. Like Amy's clinic, he used it to access young athletes, then used her authority to cover his tracks. There's more. Tony pulled out several statements he'd gathered. Other victims are willing to talk. They've been waiting for someone to believe them. The statements painted a horrifying picture. Connor's specialized training left trails of broken athletes and fractured families. He'd perfected the art of hiding abuse behind legitimate training injuries, using his charm to deflect suspicion. "We need to make this public," Drew said, reading another victim's account. "Stop him from moving to another gym." "Already working on it." Tony pulled up details of an upcoming fighting event. Major showcase next week. Connor's planning to attend, probably looking for his next target. The event venue buzzed with energy, fighters and trainers networking between matches. Drew spotted Connor holding court near the practice area, surrounded by admirers. The trainer's charm was on full display as he demonstrated techniques to an attentive audience. "Ready?" Tony asked, positioning himself near the exit. Other fighters they'd contacted stood strategically around the room, waiting for Drew's signal. Drew approached Connor's group, Jack's medical photos tucked in his jacket. "Nice technique," he said loudly. "Why don't you show them your special training methods?" Connor's smile flickered. "Drew, didn't expect to see you here. How's Jack?" "Recovering from this." Drew held up the photos. "Anyone else recognize these kinds of training injuries?" The room grew quiet. Connor's charm slipped further. "Those are clearly sparring injuries. Anyone who trains seriously, like these fighters?" Drew gestured to the others moving forward. "Tell them about your private sessions, Connor. About how you pick your targets." A young fighter stepped forward, pulling up his sleeve to reveal familiar marks. "He said it was elite training," the boy said. "That champions had to learn to take pain." More victims emerged from the crowd, each with similar stories. Connor's facade cracked completely as he realized he was surrounded by evidence of his abuse. "This is ridiculous," he sputtered. "These kids are lying. Amy will verify my methods." "Amy's not here to cover for you anymore." Drew handed copies of the photos to other gym owners. "Check your own records. How many kids did you hurt at your facilities?" The damage was immediate. Gym owners who'd considered hiring Connor backed away. Fighters who defended his methods now looked at him with disgust. His carefully constructed reputation crumbled under the weight of truth. Amy's attempt at damage control only made things worse. Her press release claiming Connor was being framed prompted his victims to speak louder. Patients from her clinic came forward with stories of delayed recoveries, of treatments that seemed designed to push them toward Connor's specialized care. She knew. One fighter testified at the medical board hearing. "I told her about the bruises, about feeling worse after Connor's sessions. She said it was part of the recovery process." Rhonda's involvement unraveled next. The retired nurse had used her medical knowledge to help hide signs of abuse, coaching Connor on where to hit to minimize visible damage. Her nursing license revocation hearing revealed decades of enabling abusive behavior. "I trusted her with my grandson," a parent testified. "She used that trust to give Connor access to my child." By the end of the week, Connor's methodology was exposed throughout the fighting community. Gym owners shared warnings, creating a network to identify and block similar predators from accessing young athletes. The first blow had been struck, but Drew knew the fight was far from over. In his guest house, Jack slept peacefully for the first time in months, while his father prepared for the battles ahead. Chapter 5. Escalation. Connor's retaliation came swiftly. Flyers appeared at local gyms, offering steep discounts for private training sessions. "Fix the damage caused by outdated methods," they proclaimed, directly attacking Drew's coaching style. "He's trying to poach your fighters," Marcus Chen said, bringing a stack of flyers to Drew's office. "Claiming he can undo the harm your training caused." Drew studied the advertisements, noting the carefully worded promises of gentle rehabilitation and trauma-informed coaching. Connor's manipulative skills were evident in each phrase. "Send these to Tony," Drew instructed. Add them to the evidence file. The fighters' response surprised everyone. Led by Marcus, they organized a complete boycott of any facility associated with Conor. Athletes who'd trained with Drew shared stories of how his methods had actually protected them from predators. He taught us to question techniques that didn't feel right, Marcus told a group of young fighters. To trust our instincts when something seemed wrong. The boycott spread through the fighting community. Gyms that had considered hiring Conor found themselves facing empty classes and canceled memberships. His attempts to start fresh met solid resistance at each turn. Amy's custody battle proved equally futile. Her lawyers presented Jack's training injuries as evidence of Drew's excessive methods, but the strategy backfired spectacularly. Tell us about your training with Conor Walsh, Amy's lawyer prompted during Jack's testimony. Jack sat straight in the witness chair, his voice steady. He hurt me, used legitimate training as cover to abuse me. And my mother knew. Objection, Amy's lawyer called out. Speculation about what his mother knew. I told her, Jack continued, pulling out his phone. I showed her the bruises. She said it was necessary for my development. The evidence was damning. Text messages between Amy and Conor revealed coordinated efforts to isolate Jack, to create opportunities for abuse under the guise of specialized training. Did your father know about these training sessions? The judge asked. No, Your Honor. Mom and Grandma Rhonda made sure he didn't find out. They said they'd accuse him of abuse if I told him the truth. Amy's face crumpled as Jack's testimony continued. Her role in enabling Conor's access to young athletes destroyed any chance of gaining custody. The judge's decision was swift and absolute. The court finds the mother's actions show a severe lack of judgment and protection of her minor child, the judge declared. Full custody is awarded to the father. Rhonda's attempts to salvage her reputation proved equally disastrous. She approached other gym members' families, spinning tales about Drew's aggressive coaching style. He's dangerous, she told concerned parents. Conor was trying to protect those children from Drew's methods. Her campaign ended when the parents compared notes, recognizing the same manipulation tactics she'd used to isolate potential victims for Conor. Stories emerged of how she'd used her position as a trusted grandmother to groom families for abuse. She told me Drew was hurting my son, one mother revealed during a parent meeting. Said Conor's private sessions would help protect him. I believed her because she seemed so concerned. The fighting community rallied around Drew and Jack. A public demonstration of support drew hundreds of athletes, each sharing stories of how proper training had empowered them. Drew Sullivan taught us more than fighting, a young athlete addressed the crowd. He taught us to recognize and resist abuse. His methods didn't hurt us, they protected us. The event became a platform for other victims to come forward. Athletes who'd encountered Conor at other gyms shared their experiences, creating a network of survivors supporting each other. Local fighting organizations responded by implementing new safety protocols. Background checks became mandatory for all trainers. Private sessions required multiple witnesses. Conor and Amy's methods became cautionary tales in coaching certification programs. We're changing how we protect young athletes, the head of the State Fighting Commission announced. No more hidden abuse under the guise of training. The escalation had backfired on Conor and his enablers. Each attempt to discredit Drew only revealed more evidence of their systematic abuse. The fighting community's response was clear. Predators would no longer find shelter in their ranks. Chapter 6. The Battle. Conor's desperation showed in his latest scheme. He approached a new gym on the outskirts of town, presenting himself as a misunderstood innovator in sports rehabilitation. Drew Sullivan's fighters spread lies about me, he told the owner. They're afraid of my superior methods. The owner seemed interested until Drew's fighters arrived. Led by Marcus Chun, they filled the gym's parking lot, each carrying evidence of Conor's true methods. Check his background, Marcus advised the owner. Ask about the injuries, the lawsuits, the pattern of abuse. Conor's charm cracked. You're interfering with my business, he snarled at Marcus. This is harassment. No, Marcus stepped closer. This is protection. We're making sure you can't hurt anyone else. The confrontation turned physical when Conor grabbed Marcus's shirt. Years of contained rage exploded as Conor's facade finally shattered. You ruined everything, he spat, swinging wildly. I had a perfect system until you people interfered. Marcus easily deflected the attack, his trained reflexes making Connor look amateurish. Your system was abuse, he said calmly. Nothing more. The gym owner called the police, but Connor fled before they arrived. His desperate attempt to start fresh had only reinforced his reputation as a predator. Amy's professional world collapsed next. Her role in delaying fighters' recoveries became public knowledge when her patient records were subpoenaed. She adjusted treatment plans to maintain injuries, an investigating physician reported. Created dependencies on Connor's intervention. Her attempts to blame Drew backfired spectacularly. Former patients revealed how she dismissed their concerns about Connor's methods, using her medical authority to silence questions. She told me the pain was normal, a young fighter testified. That only Connor understood how to fix what Drew's training had damaged. The evidence showed a pattern of medical manipulation. Amy had used her position to create a steady stream of vulnerable athletes for Connor's abuse. I trusted her with my recovery, another fighter said. Instead, she made me worse to serve her own agenda. Rhonda made one final attempt to regain control. She approached Jack after school, playing the concerned grandmother role she'd perfected. Your father is poisoning you against us, she pleaded. Connor only wanted to help you become stronger. Jack activated his phone's recording app, remembering Drew's lessons about documenting everything. Like you helped him access other kids? Rhonda's mask slipped. Those children needed special training. Their parents were too weak to understand. Like you helped him hurt me? Jack pressed. Tell me again how that was helping. We did what was necessary. Rhonda snapped. Connor knows how to create champions. A few bruises are nothing compared to... She stopped, realizing too late that Jack wasn't the vulnerable child she'd helped manipulate. The recording would prove devastating to her defense. Drew's investigation uncovered Connor's deepest secret. Hidden in the rehabilitation records were references to performance-enhancing substances carefully coded to avoid detection. He used the private sessions to distribute supplements, Drew explained to the investigating officers. The pool therapy at Rhonda's house provided perfect cover. The revelation sparked multiple investigations into facilities where Connor had previously worked. Similar patterns emerged. Young athletes given mysterious supplements during private training, their performance enhanced through chemical means. The fighting community's response left no room for doubt. Gyms across the state posted Connor's photo, warning members about his methods. His training certification was permanently revoked. Any trainer or facility associated with Connor Walsh will be blacklisted, the State Athletic Commission declared. His methodology has been exposed as a cover for systematic abuse. The battle had shifted decisively. Connor's carefully constructed world of manipulation and abuse crumbled under the weight of truth. His enablers, Amy and Rhonda, found themselves exposed and isolated. Drew watched the system they'd created collapse, knowing the final confrontation still lay ahead. But for now, he focused on his son's recovery, on rebuilding what Connor and his conspirators had tried to destroy. Chapter 7: The Fall. Security cameras captured Connor's approach to Drew's gym at 2:17 a.m. He moved with purpose, using a copied key he'd never returned. The footage showed him testing doors, searching for a way inside. What Connor didn't expect was Jack Sullivan practicing alone in the back training room. The 15-year-old had developed a habit of late-night training sessions, finding peace in the quiet hours when memories of abuse couldn't touch him. The security feed showed Connor freezing at the sight of Jack, his expression shifting from surprise to rage. Here was the boy who'd ruined everything, his reputation, his career, his perfect system of manipulation. You shouldn't be here alone, Connor's voice carried through the empty gym. Dangerous things happen at night. Jack maintained his fighting stance, positioned near the emergency exit. Drew had drilled escape routes into him since the truth came out. The cameras are recording, he said firmly. Leave now. Cameras can malfunction. Connor moved closer, blocking the main exit. Files can be corrupted. And accidents happen all the time in training. This isn't training. Jack's voice remained steady. This is breaking and entering. More evidence for the police. Connor lunged forward, abandoning pretense. You ruined everything, he snarled, swinging wildly. Your father's lies destroyed my life. Years of Drew's legitimate training took over. Jack slipped the punch, maintaining distance, letting Connor's rage work against him. Each attack was met with proper technique. Each grab deflected with practiced skill. Stand still, you little. Connor's frustration mounted as Jack evaded another attack. Take your punishment like a man. Real men don't abuse children, Jack replied, his phone already dialing 911 in his pocket. They don't hide behind fake training programs. Connor's next rush drove Jack back, but the boy rolled with the momentum, using Connor's weight against him. The larger man crashed into training equipment, his veneer of professionalism completely shattered. You're nothing, Connor spat, struggling to his feet. A spoiled brat who couldn't handle real training. I made champions before you were born. You made victims, Jack corrected, maintaining his defensive stance. But not anymore. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Connor's expression shifted from rage to panic as he realized the situation. He grabbed a training weight, desperation overriding reason. If I'm going down, he growled, I'm taking you with me. The attack was clumsy, telegraphed. Jack sidestepped smoothly, years of proper training evident in his movement. Connor's momentum carried him forward, off balance and vulnerable. A precise counterstrike, just as Drew had taught him, sent Connor sprawling. The weight clattered away as police officers burst through the door, weapons drawn. Hands where we can see them, an officer commanded. Both of you on the ground. Jack complied immediately, following protocols Drew had discussed with him. Connor tried to resist, earning himself a forceful takedown. The evidence was irrefutable. Security footage showed Connor's break-in, his attack attempt, his use of a weapon against a minor. Jack's calm cooperation contrasted sharply with Connor's unhinged behavior. News of Connor's arrest spread rapidly through the fighting community. Within days, 3 more victims came forward, each sharing similar stories of abuse spanning multiple states. He went by different names, one detective reported, spreading mugshots across his desk. Connor Walsh, Colin Waters, Craig Wilson. Same man, same pattern of abuse. The investigation revealed Connor had fled similar charges before, changing identities and moving to new cities. His careful system of manipulation had helped him evade justice until now. Amy's involvement unraveled next. Police found text messages coordinating Connor's access to young athletes, arranging private sessions when Drew would be away. Need you to handle Jack's training tomorrow, one message read. Drew's at a tournament. No interruptions this time. The evidence painted a clear picture of Amy's role. She hadn't just enabled Connor's abuse. She'd actively facilitated it, using her position as a mother and medical professional to provide him access to victims. Rhonda's desperate attempts to destroy evidence backfired spectacularly. Other gym members' parents came forward with years of saved communications, showing how she'd helped isolate potential victims. She told us which children were troubled, one parent testified. Said Connor's special training would help them. We trusted her because she was a grandmother, a retired nurse. The case expanded as investigators uncovered more victims, more evidence, more patterns of abuse. Connor's house of cards collapsed completely, taking Amy and Rhonda down with him. Drew watched the arrest footage with Jack, his arm around his son's shoulders. You did good, he said softly. Real good? Jack leaned into his father's embrace, finally allowing himself to feel safe. I remembered what you taught me, he replied. About trusting my training. The first phase of justice had begun. Connor sat in a holding cell, his crimes exposed, his victims finally free to speak. The fall had been spectacular, but the real reckoning was still to come. Chapter 8. Justice. The courthouse buzzed with tension as Connor's trial began. Media crews crowded the steps, their cameras capturing the arrival of key players in what had become a sensational case. Connor entered in handcuffs, his usual charm replaced by barely contained rage. His attorney had attempted to craft an image of a misunderstood training innovator, but the evidence told a different story. The state will prove that Connor Walsh systematically abused his position of authority, the prosecutor addressed the jury. He used legitimate athletic training as a cover to access and harm young athletes. The charges were extensive: attempted physical attack, endangerment, previous abuse cases, illegal distribution of performance enhancers. Each count supported by evidence, each victim ready to testify. Amy's testimony came early, an attempt to minimize her own involvement. She sat stiffly in the witness box, avoiding eye contact with Drew and Jack. "I didn't know the extent," she claimed, her professional mask cracking. Connor said his methods were innovative. "I trusted his expertise." The prosecutor's questions stripped away her excuses. "Did you or did you not arrange private training sessions specifically when your husband would be absent?" "Yes, but—" "And did you alter medical records to hide signs of abuse?" Amy's composure crumbled. Connor said it was necessary, that the boys needed to learn discipline. "Did you report any injuries to authorities?" "No." "Even after your own son showed you his bruises?" Amy's silence spoke volumes. The jury watched as her careful narrative fell apart under questioning. Rhonda's defense strategy, claiming manipulation by Connor, collapsed when other grandmothers testified. They described how she'd recruited them to help isolate potential victims, using their trusted positions in the community. "She taught us what to look for," one grandmother testified. "Which boys came from troubled homes, which mothers might be vulnerable. She called it protecting them, but she was really marking them for Connor." The prosecution presented years of evidence: altered medical records, coordinated training schedules, systematic isolation of victims. Connor's methodology was exposed as a calculated system of abuse. Jack's testimony came near the trial's end. He walked to the witness stand with quiet confidence, meeting Connor's glare without flinching. "Tell us about the training sessions," the prosecutor prompted. Jack's voice carried clearly through the courtroom. "Connor used legitimate training as cover. He'd hurt us during private sessions, then blamed the injuries on regular sparring." "Did you report these injuries?" "I tried telling my mother." Jack glanced at Amy, who looked away. "She said it was part of becoming stronger. When I threatened to tell my father, Grandma Rhonda said they'd accuse him of abuse instead." The jury leaned forward as Jack described the escalating violence, the threats, the systematic way Connor had used family dynamics to maintain control. "The night he broke into the gym," Jack continued, "he showed his true self. No more pretending about training or discipline. He just wanted to hurt me." Connor's outburst from the defense table proved Jack's point. "You ungrateful little, I made you stronger. All of you." The judge's gavel cracked like a gunshot. "Remove the defendant if he can't control himself." The verdicts arrived after 3 days of deliberation. The courtroom fell silent as the judge prepared to read them. On the charge of attempted attack on a minor, guilty. On multiple counts of child endangerment, guilty. On the charge of illegal distribution of performance-enhancing substances to minors, guilty. The sentences reflected the severity of the crimes. Connor received 20 years without possibility of parole. His appeals would prove futile, his claims of misunderstood training methods falling on deaf ears. Amy faced her own judgment: 5 years in prison, permanent loss of medical licenses, no contact with minors after release. Her role in enabling and covering up abuse had destroyed her professional and personal life. Rhonda's sentence of 3 years house arrest came with substantial fines and permanent revocation of her nursing license. Her reputation in the community was shattered, her role as a facilitator of abuse now public knowledge. As the court cleared, Drew hugged his son close. "It's over," he whispered. "Really over." Jack nodded, watching Connor being led away. "Think he'll ever understand what he did wrong?" "Some people can't face their own evil," Drew replied. "But he'll never hurt another child. That's what matters." The media dubbed it the betrayal in the ring case, but for Drew and Jack, it was simply the end of a nightmare. Justice had been served, leaving them free to begin healing. Chapter 9: Rebirth. 6 months after the trial, Drew stood in his transformed gym, watching a new kind of class unfold. Young survivors of abuse worked through basic fighting stances, each movement building confidence rather than fear. "Remember," Jack called to the group, "power comes from proper technique, not force." At 16, he'd become an inspiring instructor, his own recovery story giving hope to others. The gym had evolved beyond traditional martial arts training. Special programs helped abuse survivors rebuild trust and strength through controlled, supportive practice. Your son has a gift, Sarah Matthews said, joining Drew at the observation window. The child psychologist had been instrumental in developing their new programs. He knows exactly how to reach them. Drew nodded, watching Jack demonstrate a defensive move. He turned his pain into purpose. Makes me proud. Sarah's presence had become a constant support, her understanding of trauma recovery complementing Drew's practical experience. Unlike Amy's manipulation, Sarah's interest in the gym's mission came from genuine concern for survivors. The waiting list for the youth program keeps growing, she mentioned. Word spreading about what you're building here. The divorce settlement had stripped Amy of any claim to the gym or its programs. Her attempts to contact Jack from prison met firm rejection. She sent another letter, Jack told Drew one evening after classes. Same excuses about not knowing, about being manipulated. Drew studied his son's expression. You don't have to read them. I don't, Jack replied. But I'm not angry anymore. Just disappointed. Their new programs expanded weekly. Former fighters returned to help, many sharing their own stories of recognizing and resisting abuse through proper training. Drew's methods taught us to question anything that felt wrong, Marcus Chin told a group of parents. Real training builds you up. It doesn't break you down. Rhonda's house arrest isolated her from the community she'd once manipulated. Former friends avoided her. New stories of her enabling behavior emerging regularly. She tried calling Mom in prison, Jack mentioned during a quiet moment. Wanted to coordinate their stories for the appeals. And Mom finally refused. Said she needed to stop lying to herself. Jack shrugged. Maybe prison's helping her see clearly. The gym's transformation attracted attention from child protection organizations. Sarah's expertise helped them develop comprehensive safeguarding protocols. We're creating something unique, she explained during a staff meeting. A place where survival skills mean more than just physical defense. Drew found himself drawn to Sarah's compassionate strength. Unlike Amy's calculated support, Sarah's dedication to helping survivors came from genuine empathy. You've built something remarkable, she told him one evening as they locked up. Turn a place of betrayal into a sanctuary. We all did, Drew corrected, including her in the achievement. It took all of us. Jack approved of their growing closeness. She gets it, he said after Sarah joined them for dinner. She sees us as people, not projects. The gym's new identity emerged fully. Part training facility, part healing center, part community hub. Survivors found understanding, support, and practical skills to rebuild their lives. This is what training should be, Drew told a new group of students. Building strength to protect yourself and others. Never to harm. The rebirth wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual, communal. Each class, each session, each small victory helped erase the shadows Connor had cast. In her prison cell, Amy received updates about the gym's transformation. Her attempts to re-establish contact met kind but firm rejection. She needs to focus on her own healing, Sarah advised when Drew mentioned the letters. You and Jack have moved forward. She needs to do the same. The gym's programs became a model for others. Abuse survivors found more than just physical training. They found understanding, support, and hope. You showed me it wasn't my fault, a young survivor told Jack after class. That fighting back doesn't make me bad. Drew watched his son handle these moments with growing wisdom. Jack's recovery had transformed him from victim to mentor, his pain becoming a source of healing for others. We're not just teaching defense, Jack explained to a new group. We're learning to trust ourselves again, to believe in our own strength. The rebirth continued, growing stronger each day. What Connor had tried to destroy had instead become something powerful, a force for healing, for protection, for positive change. Drew, Jack, and Sarah stood in the transformed gym, watching another successful class end. The space that had once housed betrayal now rang with laughter, determination, and hope. Ready for tomorrow? Drew asked his son. Jack nodded, his confidence real and earned. Always ready. We got work to do. The rebirth was complete, but their story wasn't over. It was just beginning in a new, more powerful way. Chapter 10, Legacy. 5 years passed, transforming Drew and Jack's initial programs into a nationwide model for athletic training safety. Their gym became a blueprint for organizations seeking to protect young athletes from abuse. The Sullivan Protocol, as it became known in sporting circles, provided comprehensive guidelines for identifying and preventing predatory behavior in athletic programs. It's not just about physical training anymore, Jack explained to a conference of sports administrators. His psychology degree from State University hung on his office wall, complementing his practical experience. We're teaching people to recognize patterns, trust their instincts, and protect themselves and others. Drew watched his son address the crowd with pride. At 21, Jack had combined his fighting experience with formal education, creating programs specifically designed for abuse survivors. "Your father must be proud," a colleague commented after Jack's presentation. "We're proud of each other," Jack replied, spotting Drew in the audience. "We built this together." Their expansion to 3 facilities focused on rehabilitation marked a new chapter. Each location combined physical training with psychological support, creating safe spaces for survivors to rebuild their strength. Sarah, now Drew's wife of 2 years, integrated professional counseling services into their programs. Her marriage to Drew had given Jack something he'd lost, a mother figure who genuinely supported his growth and ambitions. The difference, Jack told a group of young survivors, is that Sarah sees us as whole people, not projects to fix or control. Their home became a gathering place for survivors, sharing stories of recovery. Weekend barbecues filled their backyard with laughter and hope, replacing memories of betrayal with new bonds of trust. "Remember when this place felt empty?" Sarah asked Drew one evening, watching Jack demonstrate techniques to a young guest. "Now it's full of life." News about Amy's release from prison reached them through official channels. Her attempts to rebuild her life in Arizona failed when background checks revealed her role in enabling abuse. She applied for a physical therapy license, Jack mentioned, reading the notification. They rejected her based on her conviction. Drew studied his son's expression. "How do you feel about that?" "Relieved," Jack admitted. "Some people shouldn't work with vulnerable patients." Connor's appeals failed consistently. His behavior in maximum security earned him additional restrictions after multiple confrontations with other inmates. "He still claims he was helping us," a former victim shared during a support group session. "But watching him lose everything that helped me heal." The fighting community embraced the changes Drew and Jack championed. Their story became a cautionary tale in coaching certification programs, their protocols standard practice in reputable gyms. Sullivan's Law, one instructor explained to new trainers. "If you wouldn't want it filmed and shown in court, don't do it in training." Jack's graduation with a sports psychology degree marked another milestone. His thesis on preventing abuse in athletic programs drew attention from major sports organizations. "We're not just fighting abuse," he told reporters after the ceremony. "We're changing the culture that allows it to happen." Their 3rd facility opened with a focus on youth rehabilitation. The program combined Jack's psychological training with Drew's practical experience, creating a comprehensive approach to recovery. "Look at this," Drew said, showing Jack the enrollment numbers. 5 years ago, these kids would have had nowhere to turn. Sarah's influence shaped their family dynamics, showing Jack how healthy maternal support should feel. Their home rang with discussions about psychology, training methods, and ways to help others heal. "You've given me more than a stepmother," Jack told Sarah during a quiet moment. "You've shown me what real family support looks like." Professional organizations adopted their methods nationwide. The Sullivan Standards became benchmarks for athletic program safety, their story inspiring others to prioritize protection over performance. "It's not about winning medals," Drew explained to a sports commission. "It's about building stronger, safer athletes." Amy's final attempt to contact Jack came through a letter forwarded by her lawyer. Unlike her previous messages, this one contained something new, an admission of guilt without excuses. She finally acknowledged what she did, Jack told Drew and Sarah over dinner. Not asking forgiveness, just accepting responsibility. The letter went unanswered, but its impact showed in Jack's increased focus on helping other survivors connect with their own strength. Connor's 20-year sentence stretched ahead of him, his appeals exhausted, his victims finding peace in his permanent removal from society. "He can't hurt anyone else," Jack assured a young survivor. "And neither can people like him if we stay vigilant." Their legacy grew beyond exposure of abuse. They created a model for transformation, showing how pain could become purpose, betrayal could lead to protection. "We didn't just survive," Drew told a graduation class of young fighters. "We changed the game, made it safer for everyone." The fighting community remembered their story not as a tragedy, but as a turning point. Drew and Jack Sullivan had faced betrayal and emerged stronger, transforming a narrative of abuse into one of healing and protection. Their revenge hadn't come through destruction, but through creation. They'd built something stronger from the ruins of trust, a legacy of protection, healing, and hope that would outlast any single victory in the ring. "Ready for tomorrow?" Drew asked Jack as they locked up their newest facility. Jack smiled, his confidence now a quiet strength. "Always ready, Dad. We've still got work to do." The legacy they'd built would continue growing, touching more lives, protecting more athletes. Their story had become more than exposure of one predator. It had become a blueprint for change, a testament to the power of turning pain into purpose, betrayal into protection. In the end, their greatest victory wasn't in the fall of Connor Walsh or the exposure of his enablers. It was in the lives they'd helped rebuild, the safety they'd created, and the hope they'd restored to countless survivors who followed their path from darkness into light. Epilogue. A decade later, the Sullivan Institute for Athletic Safety sprawled across what had once been Drew's original gym. 10 years after Connor Walsh's conviction, the modest training facility had evolved into a comprehensive center for athlete protection and survivor support. Jack Sullivan, now 30, stood before a packed auditorium during the Institute's annual conference on athletic safety. His credentials as both a survivor and a sports psychologist lent weight to his words. "A decade ago, we thought we were just exposing one predator," Jack addressed the audience. "We didn't realize we were starting a revolution in athletic training safety." The Institute had expanded to 12 locations across the country. Each facility combined physical training with psychological support, creating safe spaces for athletes to develop their skills without fear. Drew, his hair now streaked with gray, sat in the front row beside Sarah. Their marriage had strengthened over the years, their combined expertise in physical training and psychology shaping the Institute's approach. "Our father-son story resonated with people," Jack continued, gesturing to Drew. "But it's the thousands of other stories that drove real change. Each survivor who spoke up, each family who chose protection over silence, each trainer who implemented safer practices." The Sullivan Protocol had become standard practice in athletic organizations nationwide. Their methods for identifying and preventing abuse were taught in coaching certification programs, their case studies used in sports management courses. Marcus Chun, now a senior instructor at the Institute, led their trainer certification program. His experience with Connor's manipulation had made him particularly effective at teaching others to recognize warning signs. "We don't just train fighters anymore," Marcus told his certification classes. "We train protectors." Each certified trainer becomes another line of defense against abuse in sports. The Institute's research department, headed by Sarah, conducted groundbreaking studies on athlete safety and trauma recovery. Their findings influenced policies at major sports organizations, changing how athletic programs approach training and supervision. "The physical and psychological aspects of training can't be separated," Sarah explained during her presentation. "Our integrated approach addresses both, creating stronger, more resilient athletes." Drew's role had evolved from gym owner to executive director, overseeing the Institute's expansion while maintaining its core mission. His office walls displayed photos of successful graduates, survivors who'd become trainers, counselors, and advocates. Each picture represents a victory, Drew told visitors. Not just over abuse, but over the fear that tries to keep survivors silent. Tony Martinez, the former Special Forces medic who'd helped document Jack's injuries, served as the Institute's security director. His protocols for protecting young athletes became models for other organizations. "We're not just teaching defense," Tony explained to new staff. We're creating environments where defense isn't necessary. Prevention is our primary mission. The Institute's impact reached beyond athletics. Their methods for recognizing and preventing abuse were adapted by schools, youth organizations, and other institutions working with young people. Jack's private practice specialized in athlete trauma recovery, combining his personal experience with professional training. His waiting room often held both current athletes and adult survivors seeking to heal old wounds. Understanding comes from both sides, Jack told his colleagues. My experience as a survivor informs my professional practice, and my training helps me process my own history. The Institute's annual Survivor Retreat brought together people from across the country. The event combined physical training with emotional support, creating a community of healing and strength. This is where real change happens, Drew observed, watching participants share stories around evening campfires. When survivors realize they're not alone, that their experiences can help others. Sarah's counseling program had expanded to include family support services. She understood that abuse affected entire families, not just direct victims. Healing happens in layers, she explained during family therapy sessions. Each person processes trauma differently, but recovery is stronger when families heal together. The Institute's Legal Advocacy Division, established 5 years after Connor's conviction, helped survivors navigate the justice system. Their work had contributed to stronger laws protecting athletes from abuse. Laws change when stories are told, their legal director explained. Each case we handle helps build better protections for future athletes. Connor Walsh remained in maximum security, his appeals exhausted. His attempts to publish a book defending his training methods were rejected by publishers, his name synonymous with athletic abuse. Amy, released after serving her full sentence, lived in a small apartment in Arizona. Her medical licenses permanently revoked. She worked as a data entry clerk, her attempts to rebuild a professional career consistently thwarted by her conviction. She sends birthday cards sometimes, Jack mentioned during a family dinner. I return them unopened. Some bridges can't be rebuilt. Rhonda, now in her 70s, lived alone in a retirement community. Her role in enabling abuse had isolated her from former friends and family. She spent her days writing unanswered letters to Amy, trying to understand where they'd gone wrong. The Institute's youth programs flourished under Jack's guidance. Young athletes learned more than just physical skills. They developed confidence, boundaries, and the ability to recognize and resist manipulation. We're building more than athletes, Jack told parents during orientation. We're developing strong, confident individuals who understand their worth beyond their physical abilities. Drew and Sarah's home remained a gathering place for survivors and advocates. Their weekend cookouts had become legendary in the recovery community, offering informal support and connection. This is what healing looks like, Sarah often said, watching people share stories and laughter. Community, understanding, and the freedom to be yourself without fear. The Institute's research partnerships with universities expanded knowledge about athletic trauma and recovery. Their findings influenced training methods worldwide, creating safer spaces for athletes at all levels. Data drives change, Sarah explained during research presentations. When we understand how abuse happens, we can better prevent it. Marcus Chen's Fighter Protection Program became a model for professional sports organizations. His methods for creating safe training environments were adopted by major leagues and amateur programs alike. Real strength comes from proper training, Marcus told his students. Anyone who tells you different is selling something dangerous. Tony's security protocols evolved with technology. The Institute utilized advanced monitoring systems and strict access controls, creating multiple layers of protection for athletes. Security isn't just cameras and locks, Tony explained. It's creating a culture where safety is everyone's responsibility. The Institute's international outreach program shared their methods with athletic organizations worldwide. Their protocols were translated into multiple languages, their impact reaching across cultural boundaries. Abuse doesn't respect borders, Drew told international delegates. Neither should protection. Jack's book about survivor recovery became a standard text in sports psychology programs. His honest account of abuse, recovery, and transformation resonated with readers worldwide. Writing it was part of my healing, Jack explained at book signings. Sharing it became part of my purpose. The Institute's certification program expanded to include mental health professionals specializing in athlete trauma. Their integrated approach to physical and psychological well-being set new standards in sports therapy. We're training the next generation of protectors, Sarah told certification candidates. Your role goes beyond physical training or counseling. You're part of a larger mission. Drew's leadership style emphasized collaboration between different aspects of athlete protection. Physical trainers worked closely with counselors. Security staff coordinated with legal advocates. Researchers shared findings with program developers. No single approach can prevent abuse, Drew explained. Protection requires multiple perspectives working together. The Institute's success spawned similar programs nationwide. Other organizations adopted their methods, creating a network of safe training facilities across the country. Our model works because it's comprehensive, Jack told organizations studying their approach. Physical, psychological, and systemic protection working together. The Sullivan family's personal healing continued strengthening their professional mission. Drew and Sarah's marriage modeled healthy relationships for survivors, while Jack's journey from victim to advocate inspired others to speak out. Family isn't just blood, Drew reflected during a quiet moment. It's people who protect each other, who support healing and growth. The Institute's legacy grew beyond its founder's original vision. What began as a response to one predator had become a movement, changing how athletics approach training, safety, and athlete well-being. 10 years ago, we were just trying to stop one abuser, Jack told the conference audience. Today, we're preventing abuse before it starts. Tomorrow, we'll make athletic spaces so safe that predators can't find footholds. Drew watched his son from the audience, pride mixing with gratitude. They transformed their pain into purpose, their betrayal into protection, their trauma into triumph. Ready for another decade? Sarah asked, squeezing Drew's hand. Drew nodded, watching Jack field questions from the audience. Always ready. The work continues. The Institute stood as testament to their journey, not just of survival, but of transformation. They created something powerful from the ruins of trust, building a legacy that would protect athletes for generations to come. In the end, their story wasn't just about exposing abuse or achieving justice. It was about the power of turning pain into purpose, about creating light from darkness, about building something stronger than the forces that tried to break them. The Sullivan Institute remained a beacon of hope, a promise that abuse could be prevented, that survivors could heal, that strength could come from protection rather than power. Their work continued, their mission expanded, their impact growing with each life they touched. As the conference concluded, Drew, Sarah, and Jack stood together, watching the next generation of protectors file out of the auditorium. Their family had grown beyond blood ties, encompassing all who shared their mission of safety and healing. The story continues, Jack said softly. Drew nodded, understanding that their legacy would live on through the countless lives they'd helped protect and heal. And we'll keep writing it, one day at a time. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.